Hey there, welcome to the Flute 360 podcast. I'm Dr. Heidi K. Begay, and I'm a flutist, educator, coach, and podcaster. My God-given mission is to serve you. I am passionate about guiding you, the modern-day flutist, to discover your unique voice on and off the stage. The goal of this podcast is to help you thrive, both as an artist and as a musicpreneur. Go ahead and grab some espresso, your favorite notepad, and let's get to it. Today's episode 180 is titled Kathy Blocki and Molly Shortridge Talk About Being Businesswomen, Part 2. Today's conversation is a continuation from Part 1, and we continue this lovely conversation among us three ladies. We talk about edits and getting your creative projects out there even if it's not perfect. We also talk about flute studios and recruitment, how to get your name out there, and how to work with students of all ages. Remember that the Ultimate Music Business Summit is going down January 6th, 7th, and 8th in 2022. The reason why I highlight this is because this entire series is a true example of a Flute 360 episode. We have flute experts talking about Blocki flute method books, her Flute Zoo book, how to teach young ones. So that's the artistic, educational side of what it means to be a Flute 360er. But then on the flip side, to complete this circle, we are also examining what it means to be a modern-day musicpreneur. Who better to ask about how to be a business person than Molly and Kathy? They have been extremely successful within their niche for years and years. So take out a pencil and paper, jot down some notes, because we want to see you thrive. So the reason why I bring up UMBS is because Kathy Blocki is actually one of 35 presenters that you could listen to and discover their content through the UMBS weekend in January 2022. Kathy is going to be specifically talking about how to get your creative projects off the ground. You don't want to miss it. So please go to musicsummit.biz. That's musicsummit.biz. Enjoy the rest of the conversation. Thank you.
Yes, Molly's not only Irish performer and runs the whole, we barely talked about we need to talk about how that developed into you having, how many teachers do you have?
Maybe at this point about 20 in my music center. I co-own a music center. Music and arts. We have art and acting as well. We just featured on our podcast, which is not launched yet, but one of our acting teachers and his philosophy, and it was amazing.
Wow.
His discussion on how he teaches and being authentic. And so we have some great teachers, and it's hard because we have to, we segued pretty quickly to this topic, but anyway, yeah, it's a hard job to find the right people for the center. That's probably the hardest thing. And we do have some absolutely great teachers. So, but there's an element of always when you're running something that you do end up doing a lot of the work and you think other people will and they won't or they don't. So there's a little bit of sometimes it's hard that respect.
So Molly, do you think I would be great at running a school of 23 teachers? See the pause. She's pausing because she knows that would not be my.
Okay, so you have to, Kathy. One time, this was years ago. You gave us your cell phone. You ran off to teach something and gave us your cell phone, and I forget why, but we had to use your cell phone to have people buy stuff at the booth at the convention. And we noticed that there were thousands of messages on your answering machine, not your answering machine, or was it on your maybe
emails. I think,
and I know how it is because I don't delete mine either anymore too much. And it does look like there's stuff. There probably is, but I think to run a center, you have to be in 24/7 constant communication, be able to respond right away with everybody. It's kind of like being a doctor. So I am, and if I get we get requests that come right into me for new students asking for art lessons or acting, I've got to get it right away over to the teacher. They have to respond right away. If they don't, I have to get on them and say, I didn't hear back from you. Did you respond to this student or not? So I'm on top of it 24/7. It's just something I have to do all the time. And I'm not sure, Kathy, maybe that part you might not respond to, right? You're great at the creative side. So you would be the artistic director. And I would be like the communication director. That's what it would be.
So, but I think it's really important so I asked you that on purpose, knowing, and you were trying to be so kind, thinking, do I be honest or not? I think knowing who you are, and if I were going to do something like that, I have to hire somebody.
So I was just going to say that. I know that about you. You don't micromanage. You actually do get people to do the jobs that need to be done. So that would work. You could still own one. I'll give you the permission to own one over in Pittsburgh. And actually, in reality, sometimes it's no work. Like there could be weeks gone by. I mean, except for answering some emails where I don't think much about advertising and all that kind of thing. But I should. The podcast may help us. My business partner and I started the podcast together, Heart of the Artist, to kind of just sort of put us out there in the community some more in another way. So
Molly, how did the Perfect Fit get started?
Well, you can listen to our first episode of Heart of the Artist when it launches and whenever we do that soon. But we interviewed the person who had the dream for it. And he was actually the owner for years. And then not his fault, but it crumbled. The reason I not really developed, but my main thinking is integrity, is that some of the things that had happened in the higher realms of the business involving other people had to do with some probably lack of integrity. So when it fell apart, he was a little bit, I can't say too much, but it was very hard. And with his blessing, we kept it going and he left. So we kept it going, Justin and I, with maybe 4 teachers, because everybody had left. And Justin, my business partner, and I looked at each other and thought, I don't see what's wrong with this business. We've had huge studios here and we're fine. And everybody left because they were worried. And so it worked. So we kept it going, and then we hired new teachers and got things rolling again. And then there were still some people in power, like financiers of the business originally, who were not musician. They were in it for the money only. So that probably is what caused the trouble to begin with. They were in it for the money only, instead of building a community. And so finally, we bought the business name from them. They were just ready to give it up too. And so then we moved. We actually, that's not our business name, is actually Integrity Arts. And we bought the name of the building, the sign, whatever. Well, we had a new sign developed, but then our intention, we have 2 major goals. And the one is to build an arts community for the community. And the second is to bring arts into the central PA area in a way that's in one building. And then we can branch out into the community with things like little shows. And our other main goal is to make a living for teachers and not take all their money. We definitely, some music stores take 50% of what a teacher makes. We barely take that. So we take a lot. They just pay rent, but it's a lot lower, and they make a really good living. And we also, as business owners, we also pay rent. Justin and I are equal, and we each pay the same amount of money that the other teachers do towards rent for our own business, which goes into the rent for the building to the landlords. So, and the electricity and things like that.
Wow. So before I get into my next question, which is all about time management, I kind of just want to do a short recap of everything that just happened, because so much went down, and I want to kind of just grab all of these ideas and put it into a nugget, so that way there's kind of a summary. And there's a couple nuggets here that I just want to point out, and the things that you ladies said really resonated with me. One, you are noticing a void in, your community. Molly's like, where's the art, right? And then she's started actually making her doodles into a paying gig and going into a book, right? And same thing with Kathy, noticing that there was a void of where like Flute Zoo could fit in perfectly, because perhaps like book 1 of the Blocki flute methods could have been too long, perhaps for certain cultures or certain learning styles, etc. So the nugget that I want to draw everybody to is how both of you ladies were like, oh, wow, there's a void and I can fill it, right? And then I can monetize off of it and expand my business that much more. So that was a huge aha moment for me, listening to both of your stories from both perspectives. So I just wanted to draw people to that main nugget, because you ladies said so much and you gave so much wealth of information. I didn't want anyone to like bypass that main nugget that I pulled out from that conversation. So going into the next thing that I want to pick your brains about, and that's time management. You ladies throughout this entire conversation have been talking about working on the business versus working in the business, right? Wearing that creative cap, being the CEO, being the organizer, being the bookkeeper, things like that, all of these different hats that we wear. So my question is, how do you juggle it all? Because as business owners, we go through that C-suite, right? Being the executive officer, being in the tech department, like with our websites, if we haven't outsourced that. We're working on podcasts, we're working on books, being authors, performers, teachers. It's a lot. So since you ladies have been doing it for quite some time, what's your piece of advice in juggling it all? Do you want to go first, Molly?
Okay, I can go. If you notice, I have chalkboard paint all over my house. So yes. I have lists of things that are supposed to be done in the long term and lists of things that should be done in the short term, and what I'm going to lift weights for every day and in what order on another wall. And and then I put ideas on another wall. So I have one wall with flute related fairies that I'm going to be drawing. So lots of lists. And I tried electronic lists and things online, but I just don't stick with it. I'm better with my chalkboard. So I'll tell you what, this is a really strange way to work. But I realized over the pandemic, because I was in the house so much, teaching 50, I had 60 students at the beginning of the pandemic. Some of them graduated, and so I'm down to 50, and I want to reduce it more because now I'm playing in a band every weekend. So, and that's good. I need to reduce it because I want to be half teaching, half performing now. So I had to prioritize what I wanted at the moment. For a long time, it was just teaching with an occasional job here and there playing. Now that I'm passionate about being in the band, in the Celtic band, I really want to keep doing that. It's so much fun. And I had a lot of fun teaching, and I still can. So, but this is the way I work daily. I get up and check my emails to make sure nobody asked for lessons. I think about a little tiny bit of advertising I might need to do that day. I may or may not do it. And then I start doing about 20 minutes of art. And then I practice for 20 minutes. And then I lift weights for 20 minutes. And then I do art again, and then I go running, and then I practice again, and then I lift weights again, and then I clean my house a little, and then I check my texts to see if any teachers checked. I am rotating what I do every 20 minutes, and I do this from the beginning of getting up. Then I have a large chunk of teaching time, and then I start my 20-minute cycle again after I'm done teaching, and it goes till about 11. Once in a while, I'll watch TV or something like that. I realize the relaxation is important, and I do put time in for, sometimes I just wiped out, so I lie down and meditate or put a prayer on and listen to that and nap throughout the day when I'm home. But I started this process because it gets it done. And I'm not overwhelmed. When I'm tired of art, I get up and I'm doing different muscles on a different job, and I'm active and I'm staying fit. And that physical energy is really helping me do all the mental things that I need to do in order to practice and do the art. And I've also found out that, well, I know that attention span for people, it's about 20 minutes anyway on a thing where before you start to fizzle out and not do something so well. So I put that logically to my own test. And I said, I'm going to try doing it like this. And I have stuck with this for so long now, this kind of work, that it's fun. Again, I'm saying it's fun because I'm doing what I love, but I'm not getting overwhelmed by it.
Okay.
And honestly, I had to memorize so far I've memorized 60 Celtic tunes in the last 5 months. I've been working on memorizing as well on my flute in a new genre that I've never really played before. So I've really been learning a lot, and that's the only way I kept my sanity is cycling. So,
and I love seeing the chalk paint behind you with your notes everywhere. That is really cool. For those of you who are listening to the audio only, if you could see the video right now, she's not lying. There's literally chalk painted walls behind her with writing on the walls. So it's really neat to see the process. Kathy, what time management tools would you like to give the listeners?
Well, first of all, Molly is amazing. She's incredible of how much she can get done at one time. So what I try not to do is to be living in the tyranny of the urgent. But I found last year we had hired somebody full time, and she was helping in the business, and not only with invoicing and things like that, but she was also acting as a personal assistant. So having her to kind of keep me organized, and I really appreciated her say, Kathy, now you should be doing this. Now you should be doing this. So I think Molly is like her own personal assistant. But I really find it helpful to have somebody helping to pivot. And then, we talk about goals and what needs to be done. And sometimes I need to be flexible because I have a daughter who gets sick, and she spent 6 weeks in the hospital this last summer. So there's flexibility in pivoting to working in a hospital on your computer. But I would say having somebody else to discuss what all needs to be done, making those lists, and then deciding how those are going to get done. And what I can do, I used to do everything in the business. And I remember going to the seminar, just what you said, that they said you should be working on your business, not in your business. Things that other people can be doing, you should not be doing. And we try to do that. And then I also think, okay, what things can I hire out? I think hiring other people and musicians, I think it not only helps me, I think it helps them. I think there's a feeling about hiring other people that is just so gratifying. I love it. So this last year, there's been a lot to be done. So Molly was doing drawings, and then our graphic designer, who was fabulous, had recently graduated and needed a job. It's like, oh, I'm so thankful you needed a job. She was pretty much full-time for us.
Wow.
Because there was so much graphic design work. Everything needed to be redrawn. And so the process for Flute Zoo Book was a lot different than the other books where we would take a finale product and make a PDF out of it. This was much more complex. And so going between different people and reviewing it and going back and forth and say, I need this changed a little bit, and I would do my little hand drawing and send it back. Recording things. We, hired some people to make some of the tracks, the background tracks, and going back and forth with that to say, oh, I love this one. This one's not quite right. And then, so that process and hiring people to do that, and then getting them recorded. And now we're in the final process of getting book 1 is done and up, but book 2 and book 3 are so close, getting those forward and going. So whenever things don't go right with the people I've hired, that they they're gone or things happen, then it makes it much more difficult for me to be creative and create new things. Last year was an incredibly creative year, and we had Maria here, who's now going to law school. But anyways, I think I rely on other people to keep this crazy brain of mine organized.
No, I love it. And the nugget that I'm pulling out of that is delegating, and deciding when to outsource something and knowing your strengths and weaknesses. So for me, I could edit audio. Do I really want to through 360? No, not really. So guess what? I outsourced that to my lovely husband. And what you're saying, Kathy, like for lack of better terms, the secretarial work, the booking, the scheduling, perhaps not your cup of tea, but you recognize like, hey, this is not the most fun thing for me in the business. Let me give that to Maria because she really thrives within that realm.
Yes.
And then that lends you more time in your schedule to create the pedagogical materials, the methods, the exercises, the things that you are really passionate about. And you get to put your hands onto those projects. Yeah. Yes. And I think as a CEO, or I think of anybody who's wanting to pivot into being their own music boss, you are going to probably wear multiple hats in the beginning stages of your business as you're getting things to come in. But if your business is picking up and you can outsource the work, right? And you have it in the budget, then perhaps explore that option because like you said, Kathy, by hiring other people, it really brings you a lot of joy to be able to say, oh, wow, I've hired somebody for X job. And that gives me gratification as a business owner that I'm providing financial means for Jane or Joe. I mean, what a huge blessing that you can be a blessing for others. Come on. I mean, that's so cool.
And of course, this is morphed. Our first year when we sold 25 NumaPros, there was... Yeah, that was not going to happen.
Maybe a Maria wasn't needed in the first steps, right? With the 20. But it evolves and it snowballs. And then you start bringing people onto your ship and on board. I love it. That's wonderful.
The Small Business Association in Pittsburgh has been an incredible help. And I know a lot of towns have small business associations, and you can go there. They're usually tied to a university, and they'll evaluate your business. They'll give you advice. They'll make you aware of grants that are available. So I'd say use them. Use those small business associations because the advice they can give you is incredible.
I love that.
And I think what Kathy's saying too is that the time that she wants to spend on other things is important. And I have read a long time ago that you really only have time in your life for three main things.
Okay.
So, you have to kind of keep that in mind too and be realistic about everything. And I think Kathy's extremely realistic about it. She has it really dedicated to her family and her teaching and then creating this stuff. But all the other business parts is maybe not as fun for her. So that makes a lot of sense.
Not only not fun, but the accountant, the CPA does not appreciate creativity in the bookkeeping. Like when I say, oh, that's close enough. So some things are best for me not to be involved in.
Is it 1,000 or is it 2,000? There's a difference. Oh, that's close enough. Oh, shoot. And the thing that I want to really highlight and what I need for the listeners to know that this is like a huge full circle moment for me. And the reason why I want you to know what's going on in this crazy brain of mine. So, Kathy and Molly are such blessings in my life. And I've been listening to you 360 listeners and the pain points that you're going through. And literally this conversation, we're going to break it up into part 1 and part 2. But it kills two birds with one stone. So some of the listeners out there right now are saying, I need some tools for my young ones. Flute Zoo. Ding, 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 ding. Numa Pro, Blocki Flute Method books, learning from Molly, being a co-teacher through the Kinder Flute Teacher Certification, everything for young ones, right? And then another pain point I've been listening to listeners recently is, how can I pivot? How can I be my own music boss? And literally, you ladies are shining examples of that. So we're killing two birds with one stone here. We're talking about pedagogical methods for the little ones in this fluty world of ours, Flute Zoo, and then also thinking entrepreneurially, thinking businessly, and putting on that creative cap and that CEO cap and getting your things off the ground and finding your own niche. So I just want everyone to take a moment and appreciate that. Because over here in my brain, I'm like, oh my gosh, we're hitting so many things. And I understand that we're talking about various things. And I don't want anyone to get lost in, not the craziness, but I don't want anyone to get lost in all of these details. There's like a huge reason why we're talking about these things. And I'm so appreciative of Kathy and Molly just bringing it full circle for me. It's been really amazing on my side, from my perspective. I'm like, oh yeah, we're like crossing up all these things all within one conversation. So thank you.
Yeah, I would think that not everybody's going to sit down with a glass of wine and start doodling. So they have their own, they have their own perspective and what they love in life. So don't get overwhelmed by the fact that we did this one thing or two things, that you have to do exactly that as well. It's going to be your own. There's so many of your own.
I think also there's a lot of people, they're graduating with a performance degree, and you think, oh, teaching young children, I'm not sure about that. But I feel like the reason I'm gifted with teaching those young children is that I also have kids learning Daphnis for an orchestra audition, or Prokofiev Sonata for some other audition. So you have that perspective of where these young kids are going, and that forming those habits young, so that these more advanced things are truly possible to play well. I know there's some philosophies out there that you're either a teacher of young children, or you might be a university teacher, or I think it's possible to have a broad spectrum there and teach the most advanced students, and also the very beginners, and those beginners having that teacher who has that knowledge and where they're going and why they're going that way. It's a huge benefit.
Very well said.
I've also found that advanced students will tell me what they're thinking in a way that lets me understand how the young kids are feeling, that who may not be able to voice it. So sometimes it's beneficial to teach both. And actually, some of the young kids, things I've taught to them, I could say it resonates well with the older kids when I tell them about it, or adults, like how I approached it with a young kid. And this works for them. And so it's good to be well-rounded and across the board with your teaching, I think.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. Yeah. Kathy, as we're wrapping up today's conversation, is there anything specifically about Flute Zoo that you want people to know about?
I must say, I'm so excited about it. I'm so passionate about teaching, and I just feel like it's been kind of a landmark book, a landmark series. So I am so excited to see a new generation of flutists, and I hope we get overwhelmed with a flute revolution and have to find more flute orchestras and more opportunities, because of course flute's the best instrument out there. I'm sure there's no bias. I'm sure everybody here would agree. But it has been so exciting and so satisfying at this stage of my life to feel like, yes, this is really, Anyways.
I like what you said, this stage of your life, because sometimes you feel like as an adult that you're done.
Oh,
you're done. You did everything. I don't think there's anything left for me to give to this world. And there always is. And I've seen it in myself every decade. Oh, wow. Look what I just changed in my life. And I now influence something else. It's great, Kathy. So I can't wait to see what the next 10 years you're going to do.
But you know what? And I know I shared this in a different podcast, but this impacted me so much. Wally Kujala was at the NFA and he stopped by my booth and he said, I'm thinking of changing my embouchure. And then he says, and what do you think if I did this versus this? And I don't know what he showed me. I was just thinking, he's 80 and he's thinking about changing his embouchure and he's still thinking about improving and why he's so humble that he's asking me. It's like, so I just thought, I want to be like this person who is learning all the time and growing and growing and growing. It was just like, it was like a light bulb moment. I wish I would have seen what he was talking about too, but I just couldn't comprehend everything.
No, I'm going to sound really lazy when I say this, and I don't mean to sound lazy, but, take it for what it is. Piggybacking off of what Molly said, like, oh my gosh, and you're still going, Kathy. There's, the 10th book, the 11th book, literally, I kid you not, in college, and Eric will back me up on this story, I had the Numo Pro sitting on the top of my desk. And Eric was like, oh my gosh, what is this? I'm like, it's a Numo Pro by Kathy Blocki. And this is way before you and I even met. And I remember thinking of things like that and then getting to know your flute method books later. And then just, having this thought of, wow, she's done so much. I think if it were me, if I had invented the Numo Pro or invented this book, I would have been like, oh, well, I invented this really cool gadget and I'm done. Signing off. And that's the lazy part where I'm sure somebody would hear that and think, oh my gosh, that's really lazy. But it's true. Like we think like, oh, I got that degree. Now I'm done. Or I did that one book. Now I'm done. Signing off. But look at what you're doing. Like what you said, Molly, for Kathy and for you, yourself included, Molly, decade after decade after decade. Like, what can I offer in my 30s, my 40s, my 50s? And to me, like, I need to see that. I need to hear that from like where I am in my life. It's so easy to be like, okay, those degrees are done. All right, I'm going to, kind of kick back and put my feet up. But it's so true. We all have so much to offer no matter what season we are in life. And thank you to both of you ladies for being huge inspirations for me to keep going, to put one foot in front of the other and say, well, let me try this. Let me try that. Okay. And just keep plugging at it because as you know, like certain seasons, it's not always easy. But when you have these shining lights in front of you, like you two ladies, it's like, oh, okay, I'm going to put on my big girl pants today and try it again and keep at it. And so it's really truly a motivation for people like us watching people like you being a leading example.
Well, I think the same of you, Heidi. So thank you so much for saying that. You are leading all the time.
Yes. Yes. You are in just a shining example in the whole flute world.
Oh, you're too kind.
And I know what it's like right after college to feel like that's it. I have done the same. I also was there. And I remember I was working in a mental hospital as a music therapist with depressed clients. And I also started getting depressed. So, that can, you think that's the end, you're stuck there. And I didn't even know there was so much out past. Life is fun to keep living and just see what's beyond it,
Life's a good teacher, huh?
It is.
Yeah. Was there anything, Kathy, that you wanted to demonstrate through Flute Zoo? Because I would hate to like pull the rug out from underneath you and you're like, whoa, like I wanted to do X, Y, Z, and I didn't give you that opportunity.
So I think like some of the head joint things, I just talking about how we took something that was fun and the kids loved, and then it took all the kids love to do that, but how long would they practice it? A beginner, not very long. So we took a long time to find some fun background music, and we can play some of that, and you can hear it. So it sounds like birds, and also the artwork, the kookaburras that Molly drew, a made-up bird. Anyways, there was a lot of thought processes. This is just one example. How can we encourage them to practice this for a long time and have a lot of fun doing it. And I think that sample that shows a lot. It kind of is representative of the whole thing, that it just took a lot of thought to say, how can we make this concept as easy as possible, as fun as possible, and the transitions between learning new things to be as easy as possible.
Can I just add one more thing about your methods? Is
Sure.
that you always put them in an order that makes so much sense. And that everything is completely progressive. Book one, the original book one, it's amazing. And then it goes into book two, how it segues into that. And I appreciate the amount of thinking that you put into the actual rhythmic, a really good rhythmic progression, especially. And of course, the sound progression. I mean, it's top notch. So I'm happy to be part of it.
You're a great part of it, yeah.
I'm glad I used that method because it's amazing. It's so progressive, and I don't think everybody always knows it until they've actually taken the kinder flute classes and see how it works out, and how the progression is sped up when you see it in your class. So if people haven't used your method yet, there is a lot of really good stuff in there. So.
No, I love it.
It's true. There's a lot of thought that goes through it, how to very logically move from one thing to the next, and to make it easy. Anyways.
Yeah, it is.
No, I couldn't agree more. And just getting my hands on book one, it's organized well, it's thought out well. There's a reason, to the order, and it's fun. Like, the images are fun, the exercises are fun, it grabs the ear, it grabs the eye, and you can definitely see how kiddos would just get wrapped up into that world. So thank you for that addition to our community.
Yes.
Yeah. This has been wonderful. We have talked about so much, and I just love learning from you ladies, and thank you for carving out time for us. And if you're a listener listening to this and you need a resource for your studio, for your young ones or your intermediate students, check out these books, because Kathy and Molly have poured their heart into these pages, and it really is to serve you, the teacher, and to serve your students as well. Thank you, ladies, for being here.
Thanks,
thank
Heidi.
you. Yeah, thank you. Always great.
Blocki Flute has some exciting news. We will now have a Find a Teacher section on the website. Not only will this save the parents tons of time, but also it will be a help for you, the teacher, to find clients. We have families asking, where can I find a teacher who uses your books, such as Flute Zoo and the Blocki Flute method? With these questions swirling around in their heads, they would have to research and find that teacher to hire. Now, with just a click of a button, they can find it themselves. Please go to blockiflute.com and click Find a Teacher. Fill out the form and submit your information so families can find you with ease. This is a great way for everybody to stay connected. Let's talk about flute.